Welcome, everyone. This is a public meeting on the Boat Wrap Product Stewardship Program and the draft plan. And this is intended as an informal and informational meeting. I'll go through some of that as we go along. This is not a required meeting under law or rules, so it's for us to provide some transparency and give people an option to ask questions and make comments. But I urge everyone to comment online through our comment page, regardless of what the conversation in this meeting. Okay, so in 2024, Minnesota enacted a boat wrap product stewardship law. We lead the nation in boats per capita, and we have an estimated 6.25 million pounds of boat wrap used and disposed of each year in Minnesota. And that number comes from 25 pounds for an estimated 250,000 boats wrapped each year. And we will find out if that is an accurate number or not when we get this program going. Minnesota is the first state to do this. And the statute is 115A.1416, and that is available on the public comment page. We have a version of that posted with the draft plan and a timeline document. So here's our agenda for today. Introductions. I'm John Gilkison with the Pollution Control Agency, and I'm just going to run through this quickly so people know where we're at. We're going to have the folks from Reverse Logistics introduce themselves. I'm going to go over the public comment and review timeline and process, and then talk a little bit about the law. Actually, that's going to be most of the presentations, talking about the law, and then we'll look through the draft stewardship plan briefly. That's going to take about 30 minutes altogether, roughly, and then we'll have 15 minutes for Q&A. And then if people would like to speak on the record, our goal is to go for 45 minutes, starting about 1:45 for that. So to go back to this, I am John Gilkison. I have taken over the sort of management of this project for a while. We had two people working on it who have, one retired, one is on parental leave, and we are in the process of hiring a new person. And I'm worked on EPR for a long time, but I don't know the plastic film industry or boat wrap industry that well. I'm learning a lot, thanks to many of you on this call. And Adriana, I don't know that I can unmute you all, given my viewing problems here, but perhaps you could introduce the representatives from Reverse Logistics. I think you're unmuted or can unmute yourself.
All right. Hi, my name is Adriana Kanavrakis. I'm the Director of EPR Solutions for Reverse Logistics Group, or RLG, and we're an EPR compliance service provider for producers affected by EPR laws in the US and around the world. So we help with compliance, but we also run pros to responsible around the world, largely for batteries, electronics, and packaging. And I have some other colleagues on the call. I don't know if they can share themselves, but Naomi Manahan is the Director of Operations, and she's talked to a number of you. She's talked to a lot of entities about possibly being collection sites. My colleague Naomi Manahan is here. She's the Director of EPR Operations. And then a colleague, Denise Diora McVeigh. She's Manager of Producer Engagement and EPR Solutions. And yeah, we work with CIFFRO to hold some stakeholder meetings, to conduct a survey, and to put together a plan that we submitted on their behalf to MPCA on March 3rd. And John asked us to join today to help answer any questions towards the end of the presentation.
So thank you very much, Adriana, and I apologize for the mix-up that just happened here. We have the draft stewardship plan is out for public comment on our website. And this is the comment link here. The public comment period started April 1st. It ends May 15th. As I mentioned, we encourage you to submit written comments. So you can comment on any aspect of the law. The draft plan or implementation does not necessarily have to be something that's spelled out in the law. If you have ideas or see issues that perhaps aren't addressed, we will accept comments after May 15th, and there is a general email now for the program. It is boatrap.npca@state.mn.us. I think I have it in the presentation. We may not be able to consider all comments that are received late, but we will accept them. I'm going to provide an overview of the law. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the draft stewardship plan, and then we'll have a Q&A session and then opportunity to speak, as I mentioned before. So some meeting housekeeping. The meeting and chat are being recorded. This is not a required meeting under the law or rule. I can mute or unmute you if I can get to the attendee screen, or maybe Andriana has the capability of doing that as the panelist. You can set your individual closed captions and how you view the screen. You can send chat messages to everybody, or you can select sending to host and panelists. And if I can get to the screen, we'll have raised hands for the Q&A session. If you want to comment, please send a chat message to request time, and then we'll figure out how much time we can allot each person in the 45 minutes that we've set aside for that. And we can also go beyond 2:30 if we need to do that. And here's the new email address for the boat wrap program, and so you can send anything you want to that, and I can send out copies of this presentation afterwards. I don't necessarily have a way of tracking you as an attendee right now, so send me an email. All right, here are some of the key definitions in the law. Boat wrap is defined and is not limited to any particular polymer, and is also not necessarily limited to a single use or a multi-use product. A producer is the manufacturer of the boat wrap under their brand. Someone who is a brand licensee. They're an importer of boat wrap into the US, or in some cases will be the company distributing boat wrap in or into the state. Retailer is a person that sells or offers boat wrap for sale in or into this state for use by a consumer, which could be a marina or an individual. Recycling means transforming boat wrap through mechanical processes into a finished product that can be used in the material, or is capable of being processed into a finished product. It does not include altering chemical structure, using feedstock for fuels, or incineration or waste to energy processes. The stewardship organization is the organization designated by or created by producers to act on their behalf to implement, fund, design, implement this program. And here are the general requirements on the right side. The goal of the law: producers selling or offering boat wrap for sale in or into the state must create a stewardship organization, implement and finance a statewide program according to a plan approved by the NPCA to reduce the volume of boat wrap disposed of in landfills, and by providing for the system to collect, transport, reuse, and recycle boat wrap. Who's involved in the stewardship program? We have 6 or 7 main actors. We have the Pollution Control Agency. We establish annual performance goals. We review and approve plans and annual reports, maintain a list of compliant producers and brands, and we support compliance and enforcement activities. The stewardship organization designs and implements the program on behalf of producers, develops stewardship plans every 5 years, amendments as needed, and annual reports tracking program progress and outcomes. The stewardship organization collects producer fees to fund the program, and the law also provides for the stewardship organization to pay the MPCA's costs, which we estimate to be at around a half-time FTE currently. Stewardship organization also develops and distributes educational materials to the entire system of boat wrap users. And in cooperation with the end markets, they set the specs for clean material. Producers join the stewardship organization, pay the producer membership fees, and support the organization and the program in other ways that are established by them as a group. We have collectors in the program. They collect according to the stewardship organization and recycler specifications. And I put a note here for install remove under collectors and retailers because a really critical actor in this whole chain are the people who install and remove boat wrap and who know how to install it and uninstall it very quickly with but when removing all of the non-film material, the doors, the zippers, the vents, and so forth. And they are really key to maintaining quality and removing those contaminants and accessories, but they are not really addressed in the law in any way. It's up to the collectors, the stewardship organization, and others to maintain quality in the system. Retailers are responsible for ensuring they purchase and distribute and sell boat wrap from the compliant producers, and they may elect to participate as a collection point of clean boat wrap. And local and tribal governments may also elect to participate as a designated collection point, and they may conduct outreach and education. The law does not include any collection mandates for retailers or units of government. How does the program work? Well, the first part is really the stewardship plan as we are conceiving of it right now. But the stewardship plan, the performance goals, and the annual reporting all go together and feed back into each other and kind of an adaptive management and updating system that we'll be working out with the stewardship organization. It's going to be hard for us to set the performance goals until we have some initial data, and then that can be incorporated into the stewardship plans and amendments or other adaptations over the first 5 years with the initial plan. And that will establish the program statewide and remove material from landfills and send it to the processors and get it back into new products. So general timeline and major activities here in 2024 and 2025. We started with research and outreach to the industry, working with Reverse Logistics Group and a number of producers and associations. We participated in informational webinars and other events by some parties in the industry. We have the draft plan deadline of March 3rd, public comment period. We have to respond no later than July 1st, 2025. We are developing a contract with the stewardship organization to cover our costs. And then critically in 2025, September 1st is a sales prohibition date for producers that are not participating in an approved plan, and retailers must observe this. And I think the stewardship organization and Reverse Logistics and PCA would all like to see a program starting this fall. In 2026, we'll have the annual report for calendar year 25, assuming that we get started. We'll have sales data for the participating producers. We'll have the recovery data, and we'll have a much better understanding of the network of collection sites and the infrastructure and logistics that are supporting the program, and we'll have information on the processing and end markets and contamination residuals and what needs to go to disposal. The law allows the stewardship organization to submit amendments. It does not have anything in it regarding agency required amendments or being able to ask for amendments. And as I mentioned, we are most likely going to work with the stewardship organization in 2026 to establish the performance goals for this first plan. And those performance goals are annually set. And that could mean we set them for 5 years, or we work with the stewardship organization to update them each year. Uh, 2031 to 2035, we'll be looking at increasing the collection and recycling performance goals from 50% in 2030 to 80% in 2035. And during this time, we'll be looking for ways that we can improve design and material of the boat wrap industry to reduce residuals and enhance the quality of the collected material and material marketed at end of life when it's reprocessed. I have here kind of a quick snapshot view of multiple years. This information's already been provided, but it gives you a sense of the sequencing from now over the next several years. And in the public comment documents, there's a table of dates and activities as well that illustrate how the program will progress over the years. I think I've mentioned, but maybe not, there's a goal in the law that 50% of the total weight of boat wrap sold in Minnesota must be collected and recycled by 2030. So we envision that being the rate in the last year of the first 5-year plan. And collection and recycling has multiple meanings. There is a collection of discarded material, and then the recycling is the yield of the processing of that discarded material. So I've got a couple slides here on important aspects of the law. It covers all boat wrap and is not restricted to specific materials. It covers boat wrap sold or distributed in or into Minnesota by any means. So boat wrap is used to ship new boats to dealers. It is used to wrap boats that are used as display boats at sports shows and other events. So that material is covered by any means clause in the law. The stewardship organization is required to collect any boat wrap that is discarded in the state, regardless of whether the producer is a member. The program has to be fully financed by producers with no fees to consumers or participants in the program. We do not have a start date for the program in the law. You might be able to assume that it starts in the fall of 2025, since the sales prohibition date anticipates an approved plan that producers must be part of. And again, we have the prohibition of boat wrap sales and distribution for those producers not in the organization. In March 2026, we'll have our first annual report of sales, initial collection data, initial collection network, and that will help us set the performance goals for the plan. We do not have any language regarding rulemaking for the performance goals or other issues that might be addressed throughout the program, which means we'll probably avoid rulemaking. And another interesting thing is that the law does not address any marking or labeling of boat wrap to identify a producer or a brand or resins. But this is something the stewardship organization and its producers can address if they believe it is necessary. And again, I'd like to mention that for local government units and tribes, they have the options of promoting the program and participating in the program. So how can you track and participate in this? We have a boat wrap stewardship program webpage on our website. You can see it's a long address there. We need tiny URLs to come back into fashion. You can sign up for Gov Delivery on this page, and you can send in questions or other communications through this email address. And there will be a new person taking this over sometime in the next couple months. And I'll be helping with the transition. And then for the stewardship organization contacts, provided here is a program address for Polymerica, which is one of the producers and processors participating in this program. And there's also a program email address for the reverse logistics group. So I'm going to go over the draft stewardship plan a little bit here. And if I can successfully do this, I'll pull up the plan and just scroll through it quickly. But this is what the draft plan addresses. And these are all of the statutory and programmatic issues that are addressed in the law. So I will leave it up to you all to review the content of the plan and consider how it addresses what is laid out in the law and also the practical considerations of implementing this successfully. But there's 11 or more statutory areas that are addressed in the plan, including the program planning aspects, promotion and education, recruitment of collection sites, producers, other participants, performance tracking, reporting, compliance, insurance and financial assurance, where and how the material will be processed, and end markets. And we have 3 film plastic processing facilities in the state that will process this film, and they will have their own specs and requirements that program participants will need to observe. There's been quite a bit of stakeholder consultation in support of the draft plan being developed, and there will be much more as the plan is implemented. They address continuous program improvement to meet the goals in 2030 and 2035 and increase use of post-consumer material recovered in the program. It describes how the costs will be fully paid by producers and what will be areas of the plan that will start out small, so to speak, and be expanded and refined over time as experience is gained and results come in. So these are the areas of the law that are described in the plan, chapters 1 through 11. And then we have a short bit on stakeholder consultation and the outreach that's been done in the past. The plan reiterates the definitions and expands on them in some cases in a practical sense. And then as you go through the plan, the format here is that CIFFRO has pulled out the statutory requirement from the law in these boxes and then lays out their proposal for addressing each of these areas. And you can see here in the first part that we have CIFFRO, the Commercial Industrial Flexible Film Recycling Organization, is the stewardship organization, and the members at this time are Polymerica and Dr. Shrink with these brands. And then we go through here and the plan lays out the requirements and then how in general all of these requirements will be met. There's some pilot projects proposed here in the first part, looking at logistics and setting up the program. So if you have ideas on that, you could comment on those. Then some prioritization criteria for the initial part of the plan. And then CIFFRO talks more about what they'll be doing in the program years 1, 2, 3 as they build the program and learn from what they're doing and evaluate the pilot projects. We have program performance measurement, monitoring, maintenance, too many M words, and reporting here is addressed in a number of areas, including looking out to the future, identification of initial collectors, and the recyclers. The 3 recyclers we have are up north Polymerica and GDB, as I understand it, and is identified here. We have how discarded boat wrap will be handled and transported and tracked, how material will be kept clean, and how accessories and contaminants will be separated. And I know that many of you have been doing this with ag film and boat wrap in the past, are very interested in this part of the plan and making sure that it is successful, both out in the field and at the processing facilities. We have promotion and outreach, working with governments and different sectors of the industry and different outreach channels. And insurance and financial assurance for operation. And this discussion of end market is, I believe, something that will be expanded on in the future as this material is recovered and we have a better idea where these volumes can be used. So CIFFRO has held stakeholder consultations and communications in various ways. And here's a map of facilities that have been contacted. Whether they have replied or indicated interest is another story, but CIFFRO has been out there communicating with people, including a number of organizations in the field. And this is a sample survey. So I will end there. And I have my screen back. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for Q&A, and I need to find, people can raise their hand. There's a raise hand thing, and I should be able to see that on the attendee list, and I can unmute folks to ask any questions that you might have. And also, I need to monitor the chat for anyone who has indicated an interest in commenting. So let's see, I have a lot of comments on my hearing problems. I don't know if people have you can submit just to me or to Adriana and me regarding comment. And if anybody has any questions, I'm looking at the attendee list. I'm not seeing raised hands here, but
there's a question. If you go just
in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, wraps used outside of marinas, such as residential agriculture, how are these being handled? So we have a number of small programs in the state. Agricultural film is being collected around the state in various places and is being managed, I believe, through Revolution. Plastics has had a program for some time. And the 3 facilities participating in this program may also be handling some agricultural film. For residential applications, there are a number of mostly not publicly run programs to collect residential film along with commercial film, which is the big volume material here. And it's being processed in various end markets, but those are not highly organized programs at this time. If anybody else on the call has additional information on that, I will tell you I'm not a film plastic expert. I'm learning a lot. Wayne retired, and he would have been able to answer this question very adeptly.
There's another question on that, everyone.
Okay, so we have, is that a compliance question? How will non-compliant producers be controlled? What are the consequences for not being part of the stewardship organization and continuing to sell the shrink wrap? So I will just say that we start with outreach and education, and we start with communications to quote unquote non-compliant folks to get them into the program. Because when everybody is in it, then it's an equal playing field for all the producers. We don't talk about our enforcement strategies generally, but we will go to enforcement when it becomes necessary. And our usual fines in the environmental laws would be considered for those situations. Also, if a retailer is knowingly selling a brand that's not a member of the producer organization, the retailer could also face an enforcement action.
The person that asked the question before this about other wraps, a second question about wraps for DIY used in the yards.
Again, we don't necessarily have an organized program for that on the public sector side, but there are a number of small programs, sort of drop-off sites, or I believe Ridwell, where Ridwell is operating, they are collecting film plastic, and they have some end markets for residential generation. Okay, shrink film sold in home improvement stores can be used for wrapping boats as well. How do you make sure it's not used to wrap boats? I think the DIY sector, if you have somebody wrapping a boat in their own yard and throwing it out in their own trash, that is not the focus of the law. The focus of the law is on the marine industry and that sales, use, removal channel and the cycles that people go through every year. So if somebody is doing it themselves, that's not really the focus of the law. But I think as this program is established and collection points are established and become publicized around the state, that there may be opportunities for the do-it-yourselfers to utilize those collection points. From Randy, we have the question, what happens to film already sold into the state from previous years? That is not out of compliance. The compliance date is September 1st, 2025, where sale into the state of a material coming from a non-member producer, that's when that kicks in. That's when the retailers and the producers are required to stop under this law. From Amy, is a collector responsible for paying for material collection and transportation, such as paying a hauler? For collectors in this program recruited by CIFFRO and supporting the program, those costs are covered by the producers through the stewardship organization, and that is specific language in the law that there are to be no fees or charges to other participants in the program. Another question, what plastic will be allowed or will be going to landfill under the program? The explicit goal of the law is to reduce the amount of material being landfilled. We recognize that there will be residuals, both material, the quote-unquote contaminant or accessory material used when the boat is wrapped, and then which may or may not be removed thoroughly when the boat is unwrapped. That material probably is not recyclable, though there are some recyclable materials in that. And there may be batches that are contaminated that for some reason can't be cleaned thoroughly enough to process by the recyclers or by intermediates. And in some cases, we recognize that some of that will be disposed of in some manner. I won't say it may not go to landfill, but it may be disposed of or may go to a waste to energy facility, potentially, depending on what part of the state that material is generated in or where it ends up. Okay, boats made in Minnesota and shipped within the state and out of the state. So you can't bring the material into the state to wrap a new boat unless it's in the program, is how I would read the law. Other people may read it differently. I guess the advice is consult your attorney. It's distributed in or into the state by any means is the language in the law. So that means if it comes in on a new boat, the producer is supposed to be a member. And if you're making a boat in Minnesota, you can't bring it in if it's not to wrap those new boats unless it is a producer that's in the program. And I can pull up the law and go through some of that language if anybody would like to see it. I would suggest read it thoroughly and read it slowly. There are a lot of different elements in there and it kind of jumps around. It's not necessarily laid out in a programmatically or chronologically, in a logical sequence. And if you look at the timeline and activities document that's in the public comment docket, that gives you a little sense of how things tie together as well, but it doesn't necessarily cover the by any means component, or there's the section with no additional costs to participants. That's a short subdivision near the end. But it has in the law, it has the components of an EPR program and laying out who's responsible, timelines, what has to be done, who has to report to who. Things like that. Any other questions, chat or spoken? I hear typing, but
there's another question
maybe that's, oh, okay. I don't,
about stewardship fees.
where is that one showing up in the chat?
Yeah, it's in to everyone at the end.
Okay. I'm missing it, I guess. So is it a producer asking about fees?
I don't know if this person's a producer.
Or
They answered it privately. Have stewardship fees been established, or does it depend on the number of participants?
stewardship fees have not been established as far as I know, but that is, the stewardship fees are up to CIFFRO, the stewardship organization, and its member producers as they implement this program and determine what the costs are. And there have been pilot programs of this type in Minnesota and elsewhere in the country. So there may be some data out there about the costs that could be used to calculate some rudimentary fee numbers, but I do not have those, and I'm not going to speculate on what that might be. Generally, it's usually a very, very small surcharge on sales that generates a sufficient.
They're usually like the cost to pursue the program, to do everything like public education, collection, recycling, administrative costs, like fees to pay the state, like all those costs are bundled. And then they typically will look at the market share or sales of the different producers. And then the cost for that will be allocated based on market share. That's how it typically works in most
Yes.
EPR programs. So if a producer isn't part of the group yet, and they join the group after September 1st, they'll incur fees from when, from plan writing from the beginning, because it's not just when you join. It's like you should have been part. It depends when you started your sales into the state, but typically, like, you would be billed for whenever the program started, like whenever the CIFFRO first started incurring costs.
So you've got some fixed costs to establish the program, and then you have and administer it. Sort of, those are kind of fixed costs, and then you have the variable costs that are the operation and the scale of the operation.
Yeah.
And yeah, market share, or maybe it's by, in some programs it's based on weight or volume of material sold. For example, in packaging stewardship programs is going to be based on the material, the weight, the volume, the ease or difficulty of collection and recycling. So there are different factors that go into that, but basically it's how do all the participants equitably allocate the full cost of the program?
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for answering that, Andriana. I still don't see that question in my chat. I don't know what I'm missing here. Maybe it only went to you.
It went.
Oh, I see some more. I see some more questions now. They finally popped up. Okay. I've got the boat film collected has value. Are the recycling firms going to cycle some of those funds back to the program? So there's different ways to look at that, and Andriana maybe could address that if she wants to, but I would say the stewardship organization will have contracts with the processors, and there's going to be some financial transaction there, and that's going to be the cost or benefit to the stewardship organization of the material value is going to be part of that, and that's going to just be part of the organization's whole costs. So if they have a processor who's paying for material, that'll go into the balance sheet of the organization. If the stewardship organization has to pay for it, then that will be an expense on their part and not income.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on the quality of the material.
Yes, right.
Contaminating. Or CIFFRO will get paid for material.
Right. A lot of this is it's gonna be volume and quality, and how much cleaning or other processing is going to be required at the processing facility. And I believe that all three of them have some kind of wash line that can remove non-plastic material, and there's some float sink technology to remove some of the plastic contaminants, but those are not, those systems do not remove 100% of the unwanted contaminants. Contacts at the recyclers. Well, 2 of the 3 recyclers are identified in the draft plan, I believe, and I don't know that the program contacts are going to be identified, but the processors are identified. And if the third one isn't identified, I'm sure it will be public at some point.
I mean, I think if a collection site is participating through the program, the collection will run through the program.
Right.
So yes, like they will be shared, but like if CIFFRO is contracting with the recycler and contracting with the collection site, it has to be run through the program, not an individual collector contacting the recycler without knowledge of CIFFRO. So.
Right, and a collector would want to be in this program because then they are not responsible for finding a hauler and negotiating with the processor. It is part of the package that you are providing in the service, the overall service of collection, transportation, processing.
Yeah, the stewardship
control, right? The entire stewardship program. Are there other questions, or does anybody want to make a formal comment on the call, or if not, as I mentioned, please submit public comment, and I could just show you that screen briefly. Let's see, where's my share button here? This might be a. Is that showing?
Yeah,
Okay. It's not showing to me, of course. Anyways, let me see if I can get that, find out where that is.
there's some other questions or comments.
Well, I'm not seeing the screen, but that's what the screen looks like. You have to scroll down to the bottom and look at review documents. There's a little box with a paper clip in it and says review documents. That's where you can access the draft plan, 2 versions of the statute, and the table of dates and activities. And then you can submit written comments, or you can attach your own. You can either type them in right there, or you can write something up separately and attach it and submit it. And I believe that all the comments can also be viewed by anybody. I believe that's how we set it up.
I just put it in the chat, the web address for the page.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, and it's in the presentation too, which I will, again, send me an email if you want the presentation, because I can't track you from your participation in this webinar. Okay, so we've got a couple more questions. The recyclers might want to validate that they can recycle a given plastic if it is unique. This program is going to be collecting boat wrap that should be a known material. That might get into one of the issues I mentioned early on, is some marking or branding of material that's in the program, so that it can be quickly identified and kept in or kicked out if there's questions. Most of this material is LDPE or LLDPE, because that's what's shrink wrappable. But there are other materials that are used. The request for a copy of the documents and presentations, you can download the draft plan, 2 versions of the statute, and the timeline activity table from the comment page, and send me an email at the boatwrap.mpca@state.mn.us email address to get a copy of the presentation. I can put that up again, I think. Okay, if you want a copy of the presentation, send an email to the boatwrap.mpca@state.mn.us email address. I will send you a copy of the presentation. I'll leave that up for a little bit. Andrew, I can't see the questions now when I have this up.
Okay, it says online sales such as Amazon. How will you handle that?
We'll be communicating with Amazon, and it's their responsibility to know these things. They track these things very closely, and they don't like being out of compliance with states. So I don't see that we'll have an issue with Amazon, but we will probably have issues with other online sellers. And we're counting on our friends in the industry to find those people and enroll them, or talk to us if they're having issues getting people into the program. I'll just say that I've been working on a number of issues with Amazon, and when you get it, sometimes it's hard to get their attention, but when you do, they take very quick action to be in compliance. And there was just important ruling about them recently that they can be held liable for the products sold by their what do they call them? They have they claim they're just a platform, but they are actually a selling party. I'm not a lawyer, so I won't get into it, but they do not want to be out of compliance.
There's another, here, one second. Thank you for this. Would love a copy of the slides if you're sending them around.
Okay, I'm gonna get out of this so I can see the chat.
They left their email address.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I would say definitely send that too. I guess if you want a copy, another way to get a copy of the presentation is put it in the chat, because I will have a copy of the chat afterwards. I forgot about that.
Lucy asked a question. Under continuous improvement, does this specify what that actually means? Sorry, I missed the first 10 minutes.
Oh, well, continuous improvement means that the collection network is expanding. The material collected and recycled is increasing to meet the 50% and 80% goals that are laid out in the statute. And that other aspects of the program are becoming more efficient or higher performance. It's somewhat, ambiguous, I guess I would say, but there are specific performance goals in the statute, and there are program measures of success and performance that are in the draft plan, they're in the law, and that the agency will be establishing when we establish our performance goals in collaboration with the stewardship organization.
So there's a follow-up. Is there anything on continuous improvement for as in
Or readings, okay, so design and materials.
or they kind of cited more components perhaps easily recyclable.
Yeah, there's a little bit in the law on reuse. So that's one kind of product improvement that plays into it. The author of the law didn't want to get into a lot of detail on that when he was negotiating the law. He wanted to create a program that would provide incentives to get rid of the quote unquote contaminants, but not compel that. So I talked with Naomi Manahan last week, and she visited someone who's doing boat wrap. Or Naomi, maybe you were telling me about somebody who visited a person taking off boat wrap, but said the experts don't even use those accessories. They know how to work with the polymer and the film to vent and have access and to eliminate some of the cord material that's used. And the people who are experienced can take that stuff out very quickly as they're removing the material in the spring. So it's never rolled up together. It's off before anything else happens with the film on its way to the recycling. There's also the color issues, but that's easy to deal with. Because they're usually the same polymer, and there's a little bit of tolerance for some color contamination, but it's easy to keep those materials separated.
There's another question. What if someone uses a general multi-purpose shrink film that is not labeled as boat wrap?
We'll have to address that as we go. We cannot stop an individual from buying a product to wrap a boat themselves that they find as a product that's not marketed as boat wrap. That's not really the focus of the bill. The focus of the bill is the commercial boat wrapping industry. and the folks who engage in that industry and you know, do it in large volume or significant volume. The onesie twosies, do-it-yourselfers they're hard to find. They may take advantage of the program. A lot of people want their material recycled, so maybe some of those folks will make sure they get into this program so that they can make sure that the boat wrap does get recycled and they don't have to deal with it themselves in their own garbage or whatever they do with it. Like egg film, we don't want it handled like egg film, much of which is burned out in the back 40 or the sinkhole or the ditch. Any further questions from anybody? We're at about 10 after 2, and I think we've had a great set of questions here. And I appreciate having 30 plus people on at one point. And we've only lost a couple people even at this right now. So again, submit comments, sign up for Gov Delivery. If you have a brilliant idea, please share it. Even if you think whether you think it's brilliant or not, it could be.
There's one more. Someone said, I believe the initial starting point of the law was winter storage wraps. So I would like to understand the winter storage use versus OEM covers.
Well, some of it is single use versus are you buying a canvas, a longer life canvas cover for your boat that either comes with the boat or it's a, you know, kind of a custom aftermarket for your boat. That's what I would call an OEM cover. A winter storage, if it's a single use shrink wrap, one season shrink wrap, that is the focus of this bill. But there are also plastic film reusable covers that could be handled under this program and might last a couple of years, might be usable for a couple of years. It's a smaller part of the market, and I don't know a lot about it, and I don't think we're going to start out with that as a big focus, but it could be rolled in as it moves along. Does that address the winter storage use versus OEM cover question?
There's another question. Chisago County accepts Trex plastics bags. In just the last few weeks, people have been dropping boat wrap off in Trex boxes. Trex does not want this product, but people have heard there is now boat wrap recycling.
Okay, I might try to unmute you, Lisa. You might be unmuted now. Is this Trex who makes like a plastic lumber product? They're accepting certain feedstock material from the public, and this is not acceptable to them. Is that it? Okay. What is Trex looking for? Are they looking for HDPE or polypropylene? Or is it just the debris issue, like not clean? Did I unmute you, Lisa? I thought I did. I tried to. I'm hitting unmute, but I'm not sure it's working. Because I can talk with you separately, Lisa, if this doesn't work. Okay, 2 and 4. Boat wrap is generally, some boat wrap anyways is 2, it's LDPE. And 4 is HDPE, which is like milk jugs. And some other more rigid material, not the film. Is there a map of locations that have been already contacted? the stewardship organization has a list. I don't know if they've mapped it out, and I don't believe there's a map in the draft plan. So I would
There's a map of
suggest,
who that we sent surveys to in the plan.
I'm sorry, Andrea,
There's a map of all the entities we sent surveys to.
right. And that I had up at the very end of scrolling through the plan. And that was pretty much covered the state. But your interest list and your potential kind of starting collection site list,
There's
you
That's
might have a map yourselves, but it's not in the draft plan.
correct.
So I would suggest, Amy, looking at the list in the draft plan, there's a partial list of collection sites that have indicated interest. And you could send an email to the reverse logistics general email in the presentation, which goes to Andriana and her colleagues, and they might be able to share a map with you. Or if you have an interest in a certain part of the state, they might be able to tell you who's on their list for that area. One of the things that I didn't mention, we haven't really talked about, is the goal of the agency and stewardship plans is to provide equitable, whatever that means, and convenient access to all areas of the state. Because a stewardship program should provide statewide opportunity and not be limited to certain areas. So, but we know that a program like this is going to start where there's interest and where there's volume. And ultimately, over the next, maybe towards the end of the first plan or into the second plan, we'd like to have good access statewide, and we will do a map of, population and then distance to a collection opportunity. We like to have, 80% of the more of the state within 15 miles of a collection opportunity. And sometimes we can do even get up over 90% at a reasonable distance for the material that's in question. So that's something I'm sure will be talked about in the future, but right now we're focused on getting things up and running and demonstrating what's possible and learning the best ways to do it. We have a question about definitions in the law, boat wrap for use during storage and transportation. Well, let me look at the definition here for a minute, because we do have yeah. Boat wrap means plastic that is used, intended for use, designed, or marketed for the purposes of wrapping a boat to protect it against moisture and damage from other potentially harmful elements during storage. So I guess it's a question of what storage means. It's an interesting question. I've got it on my list. Thank you. I guess when you're marketing a new boat, it is in storage at times. Maybe not this, maybe the sports show is a little bit less storage, but certainly the new boats are wrapped until they're ready to go out the door or used for display. This is Yeah, it's boat. The wrap is definitely used for new boats being sent out to the distributors and retailers. And boats that are on the boat show display circuit. We have a question about how many boats are wrapped in Minnesota. We will have a much better idea of that as this program gets underway, but some preliminary estimates were that there were 25 pounds per boat used to wrap 250,000 boats per year. And that's a number that Representative Kraft quoted based on his discussions with folks, and I don't know exactly where that number came from. We do have, of course, DNR registration information, but that may not be the population of boats that are being wrapped. And thank you, Matt, for that information. 150,000 boats per year made in the US. Okay, we're getting close to our scheduled end time. I'll make a last call here, and I want to thank you, Andriana, for huge help with
Sure.
the webinar system here. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, I think we can call it. And I want to thank you all for participating. A lot of people for sticking with us through the whole time, for your questions and insights that you've shared. And please comment, track the program, become a participant in some manner. Let's make this a success and a model for others to implement in the future. And thank you. I know Naomi's on here and a couple other folks from Reverse Logistics. Thanks for being on today as well. Denise.